Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So the topic of my talk, as you can see, is the compelling case for zero trust cybersecurity best practices. The key word that I would like you all to focus on is zero trust. But trust, can it ever be zero? Do you think we can ever be in a situation where we have absolute zero trust? I mean, you've all trusted me and the other speakers, you've all given your time, you've come here. That in fact says that trust can never be zero. You've got to be able to trust, especially in this collaborative world. Trust has got to be a positive number. It's got to be greater than zero. But at the same time, it's all about how you manage that trust that becomes important. So zero trust is not so much about really, literally zero trust, but about how you manage the trust. And we'll be talking about that. And we'll be touching upon how you can use risk as an indicator for all of this. So given that background, let me take a quick moment to introduce myself. My name is Ram, and I'm from ManageEngine. I've been with ManageEngine for the last 8 years now, and I work as a product marketing manager and a cybersecurity specialist. Now, I look at cybersecurity from two different angles. I look at it from the offensive point of view, where I research the different kinds of attacks that cyber attackers are trying to perpetuate on organizations. And I also look at it from the defensive point of view. What are the different tools and techniques that organizations can deploy to stop these attacks? My work, in a little way, helps our company ManageEngine develop a solution called Log360, which is what we call an integrated SIEM solution with data loss prevention and cloud security capabilities. So that's a little bit about our division called ManageEngine. But ManageEngine itself is a division of the company Zoho Corporation. And we've been around for the last 25 years. It was founded in the year 1996. It's got 4 different divisions. ManageEngine is all about IT. It's got Zoho.com, which is all about business productivity applications, like Zoho CRM, Zoho Mail, and so on. We've also got a new division called Trainer Central. So if any of you want to start your own online course, so we've got you, you can actually make use of Trainer Central to set you up within 30 minutes. So that's a little bit about ManageEngine and Zoho Corporation. Now going into some of the solutions, we make more than 120 different software, all catering to different needs of IT, one of which is cybersecurity. Now, the main topic here. Things have changed, and things have changed drastically in the last 2.5 years. Attackers have now shifted to identity-based attacks. They're not really going after the network anymore. They're going after identities. Because over the last 2 years, there has been a heightened uptake of the cloud. People have started using SaaS-based applications, third-party applications. Organizations themselves have also moved to the cloud. So you have a situation where there is a lot of use of public cloud infrastructures now. So things have changed quite a lot. So attackers have also changed their modus operandi, so they are going after identities. But believe it or not, even in the year 2022, what is really happening is they're still using the tried and tested method. They are still using brute force attacks to get into an organization's network. Take a look at this. An 8-character long password in 2022 takes about 39 minutes to compromise. The takeaway for all of us here, do not use 8-character long passwords of any complexity. I would highly recommend people to use at least 12-character long passwords of suitable complexity. But what is even more better than 12-character long passwords? Please use passphrases. That will lead to less fatigue. People will not forget it as much, so you'll not get those calls to reset passwords. Plus, research also shows that passphrases are much more harder to compromise for cyber attackers. So please do use that. Also use multi-factor authentication. And when I say multi-factor authentication, I truly mean multi-factor authentication. it does not mean two-factor authentication. It's got to be at least 3 factors of authentication. Now, you may have a question. Isn't that very frustrating? Now, let's have a situation where an employee uses about 20 applications every day. Now, can you imagine a situation where they have to authenticate, using multi-factor authentication on each of these applications? That's going to lead to a lot of fatigue. So, for zero trust to happen and for you to take into account risk and also usability of your employees, have MFA for sure, but also have SSO, single sign-on. These have to work in conjunction. If you haven't done this already, a lot of people are, but if you haven't done this already, please do it. SSO along with MFA. Now, the question then arises, isn't SSO going to be contradictory to what we said? I mean, all that they have to now do is compromise that one account, one password, and then it's all done. But then, my counter question to you is, do you think that just because there are so many applications, users are going to use different credentials for each of those applications? No. We are creatures of habit, so we'll be repeating passwords, we'll be repeating credentials anyway, so that defeats the purpose. But when you have SSO in place, in one single umbrella, you can have all the different cloud applications or on-premises applications for that matter under one place, and you can do all kinds of analysis there. So that's why SSO is going to be helpful, along with multi-factor authentication. When I say multi-factor authentication, it's got to be 3 factors. So your usual set of credentials, username and password. You've got to have something that the user owns, so a mobile phone. Always have an authenticator app instead of SMS-based OTPs, because they can be compromised. And then something that the user is, biometrics, like fingerprint or retina scan. These are critical. But then let me caution you, MFA is not attack-proof completely. In 2022, earlier this year, we saw an attack on Microsoft 365 users. It was an MFA fatigue attack. A very non-sophisticated type of an attack where the attacker just kept sending notifications, and after a while, the user just got fatigued, and they let the attacker write in. That was all that the attacker was waiting for. But this is very, very simple. There are far more sophisticated ways of bypassing MFA. Another growing trend that we see in this day and age is attackers are deleting backups. Back in the day, with ransomware, what used to happen was attackers would get into the network, and their whole objective was to spend as little time in the network as possible, encrypt the data, leave, and then demand a ransom. But now attackers are actually taking their time, their own sweet time. They want to figure out what the environment is. Then they are going after backups, because they know if they delete the backups, the chances are very, very high that the organization is going to pay. They can't get the data back. And it's not very, very difficult to do. It's as simple as what you can see here, deleting a single index file that would render all backups inaccessible. That's how simple it is. So that's something that we are seeing. And then there are also, when you look at the attack kill chain, these are the 5 steps. I've again simplified it. Point number 3, domain reconnaissance. Attackers are using tried and tested tools, whitelisted tools. They are living off the land. They are using PowerShell. They get onto the network, they compromise an account, then they use PowerShell commandlets to figure out what is happening within the network. So they get to see the list of users, the security groups that that user belongs to, the organizational units, the file shares. There are tools available. They can just go online and they can download these tools. They can even go onto the dark web, download even more sophisticated tools. Now, I've been to the dark web. It's not a fun place to be. It's not a nice place. You can get all kinds of tools there. It's very, very easy. Ransomware as a service is also happening in the dark web, where attackers, all that they have to do is hire those services from ransomware organizations or developers, and then they get these dashboards on which they can see the extent of the damage they cause in real time. That's how sophisticated it has become. And where did it all start? Well, something as simple as PowerShell. So make sure you have the necessary tools and the visibility to know what is happening in every part of your network, including when people are running these PowerShell commandlets. The solution, zero trust. Now take a look at this. The elements themselves are not very different from what you'd have in any network. But the interplay between them is what is different here. So you've got identities, you've got endpoints such as devices, data applications, and you've got the infrastructure and network. Make sure you're able to look at it holistically from a risk-based point of view. At any point of time, you've got to be able to assess the risk that identities and devices pose. And it's got to be done dynamically. So it can't be the case where you authenticate an identity into the network and then you forget about it just because the identity is now within the network. The whole point of zero trust is that location does not equal to trust. Just because you've authenticated once and now for all intents and purposes the identity is within the network, they can't be inherently trusted. You've got to have a mechanism in place where you can assess the risk of that identity. And as soon as the risk goes beyond a certain threshold, you have to take action. Maybe you want to log that identity off. Or you want to have adaptive authentication because the risk level is too high. Likewise with devices. First of all, whatever device it may be in your pharma company, you've got to get the complete inventory of all the devices. Now that could be registered devices, so company-owned devices, or it could be devices that the employee owns, for that matter. You've got to have a list of all that, and then you've got to look at the risk of those devices as well in real time. And again, as soon as the risk goes beyond a certain threshold, you've got to take some action. Does the device really belong in the network at that point of time? That's a question that you've got to ask yourself. Now, many people also started using VPNs. Now, VPNs, great way of doing things. It's better than nothing, but going forward, we can't just rely on VPNs because VPNs, at the end of the day, still inherently trust once an authentication is done. So what we've got to do instead, going forward, is have the checks and balances as close to the resource as possible. So you can still have a VPN, but then as soon as a particular identity wants to use a particular asset or a resource, the checks and balance will have to be at the periphery of that resource. So you've got to authenticate again, and you've got to assess what is that identity actually doing. You also have to have micro-segmentation in place. Undue traffic should not be moving between places, especially in the pharma industry where there is a lot of collaboration between departments in the value chain. You could also be collaborating with other companies. So make sure you have segmentation in place. Access should not be given when it is not to be given. And in case there is some sort of a collaboration, you've got to make sure that you have just in time and just enough access. So there's got to be a way for you to give access, let's say, for a particular period of time, maybe for 1 week when that collaboration is going on. And as soon as that 1 week is over, the permissions will have to be revoked automatically. You can't do this manually. It's prone to error. You can't do this manually. Likewise, you've got to have just enough access, or GEA, JEA, where let's say there is again a collaborative project, but let's say that a particular team does not need the entirety of the information. Maybe they don't need the customers' names of a particular report. So maybe that part of the report should not be given to that particular organization when it's a collaborative project. So just in time and just enough access are extremely critical for a zero trust architecture. Use anomaly detection for tracking risk. This is where AI and ML comes into play. The earlier speaker also spoke about it. So here, you have in any organization different types of people working in different departments. Make sure you look at their risk at any point of time. What exact risk are they exposing the organization to? Are they doing activities that they are not known to do? So come up with a baseline of expected behavior for every user and entity. And as soon as the user or entity does things that they are not known to do, flag that as an anomaly. Have peer group analysis also. That can increase the accuracy of your risk scoring. For example, let's say that there is the marketing team and there is a sales team. The marketing team's behavior as a whole will be very different from the sales team's behavior. So when you're assessing the risk of a person that belongs to a particular team, the marketing team, for example, make sure that you look at their risk score and compare it with how the other people in that peer group are behaving. That will give you a far better idea of risk. So a lot of the stuff that I talked about ransomware as well. So here's an ebook that you may want to take a look at. You can also visit it as a stand, so we can give you the soft copy for this. It's about understanding ransomware and how it affects the healthcare industry. We also have a blog called ManageEngine Expert Talks, where we'll talk about different things that are happening in the cybersecurity market. And we would highly encourage you to go here and take a look at some of the articles here. And there's also an opportunity for you to collaborate with us. So if you can give back to the community, well and good. You can write a blog, or we can always collaborate in other ways also. Please check out ManageEngine Expert Talks. And with that, I thank you. Never trust, always verify. Nothing personal, but this is the essence of zero trust. Thank you so much. Our company is Zoho, made in India and made for the world.